Good morning, Dean. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. This is still part of that childhood dream coming true because the Little House on the Prairie and Laura Ingalls was a huge part of my childhood. And I mean, my third grade teacher, Mrs. Stephenson, I can still hear her voice sharing the words from those pages.
You know, Little House was so much a part of elementary school curriculum during those years, and they are wonderful books to read. You know, they are so atmospheric, and there's so much information about life in that time that Laura lived. Yeah, they're really special. And our series is about an emotional life set in that time frame. The Little House books are really very specifically about how people lived during that time, and they're great reads.
You know, it embraces the real story of being out there in the farm world because, I mean, my grandparents, had their own farm out there in Sheridan, Wyoming, and I would walk those fields like Laura Ingalls, and I wanted that small village like you guys had on that television show.
Yeah, it's, I think one of the reasons that people loved it, Arrow, is that they could every week, when you were watching it when it was new, every week you could step into this completely different world, and a simple world. And it was a world that was filled with love and hope and family. And look, there was more than its share of heartbreak and disappointment. Yeah. But, one of the things that made Little House so special was the way Michael wrote about how people coped with the highs and lows in their life. There was a lot of grace in the way that people embraced the world that they lived in and the things that happened to them. And I think that was aspirational, instructional. And I think it gave you hope that you could survive, that the Ingalls could survive, that the Ingalls could go through these very challenging things. And you could too. And Michael created stories that gave people a template for maybe how to look at challenging circumstances. Very special that way.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because he would always plant a lesson that we could all learn from. And I always wondered if you guys, because you got it first when you were on the set of what the storyline was going to be and what was this week's lesson. And then all of a sudden you had to transfer it to us, the viewers.
Yeah. The scripts that we didn't have a lot of time to absorb these scripts.
Wow.
Before we shot them. I mean, you would shoot an episode every 7 days, and on the sixth day of the episode you were shooting, if you were in the next script would appear, and everyone. It was really funny. I mean, everyone would rush to their dressing rooms to read the next script to see what they were doing. To see if they were doing anything that was fun. And that was, but you were really focused on the mechanics of doing it. You weren't necessarily so focused on what the lesson was. I mean, I think that becomes sort of apparent, but it was about playing the scenes, and that's what we really had to be. And all the work about what the lesson was crafted into the words of the script. So we didn't have to do anything extra. We just had to deal with the scene work that we had. The show was so wonderfully written that everything was very clear. There was never a doubt about what we were doing and how we were doing it. And that's unusual. You don't always get that. When you look at a script, sometimes you're wondering what it's about. With Little House, you never had to wonder what the show was about.
Yeah. Wasn't it a pivotal time in the storyline when you came onto the scene? And the reason why I say that is because, we always hear of little girls falling in love with those on TV. But we guys, we were already in love with Laura Ingalls. And then all of a sudden you come on the show and it's like, oh my God, I want to be him. I want to be him.
Arrow, did I wreck your crush?
No, you taught me. You taught me how to respect is what you did. I mean, you really did some seriously positive stuff.
Well, I love the way the character was modeled. And I grew up in this very matriarchal home where I learned I think I learned so many lessons about how to behave and how to treat women and the value of our shared relationships that we have with each other. So I was able to bring that to the work that I was doing on Little House. And I think it's why Michael saw whatever that was that made me unique. He saw it when he auditioned me. Susan Sukman, who was our casting director, saw it. And I think I just felt like I understood how to be in this situation. And so, I owe my family a huge debt of gratitude for making me the person that may be the right guy to be the guy on Little House.
Yeah.
And that really, I had nothing to do with that in a sense. I mean, we all have something to do with it, but I grew up in a very particular way, and I think it really nurtured the values that were important on this program.
When did you feel it in your heart that it was time to put together Prairie Man?
I think I started to really, got the inkling of it in 2021 as we're coming out of the pandemic. And suddenly the 50th anniversary of the program is really, truly coming into focus. I mean, time just sort of creeps up on you, but I think, my God, 2024 is going to be here before we know it. I remember having a conversation with Karen Grassley, of course, played Caroline on the program. And I love Karen, and she was in the midst of writing her book, and she said to me, "Don't think you can just throw this together. If you have an inkling that you want to do this, you really need to get out in front of it and be very intentional about doing it." And so in 2022, I really got serious about it. And in January of 2023, I sat down at 5 a.m. for the first time, with my computer and a cup of coffee and my outline, and I started writing. And on July 31st of last year, I turned in my first draft of the program with the understanding, or rather of the book, with the understanding that it was going to take a year to actually turn it around and publish it. The publishing world is a very, there's so much that goes into actually physically putting a book out.
Yep.
We're so used to things being sort of instantaneous. We do podcasts, we do like yours, we do a broadcast, we do all these things, and they happen seemingly instantly.
Yep.
Doing a book is not an instant process. And this was a lesson in that for me.
Where can people go to find out more about you, Dean, and show you some love, man?
Well, all my social media is official Dean Butler, which is on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And the book can be found for pre-order at Amazon and at Barnes and Noble. I think if people are intrigued by the idea of the book, I hope that they'll walk into their local bookstore and ask for it, because I think that's really good for the bookstore, and it's good for the book, and it's fun to be able to walk into a bookstore and actually find something and pick it up and read it. So, I'm excited by this. You never know how something's going to be accepted when you put it out there. I'd like to think it's a well-balanced story. It's certainly about my life. It's about Little House. It's about television and entertainment during a particular period of time, the 70s and 80s. There's some love and romance in the book. There's disappointment in the book. I mean, I think it's a pretty well-rounded look at a life in a particular time.
Yeah.
And I do focus it a lot through Little House. It's because Little House is the most significant creative experience in my life. And the fact that we're celebrating 50 years of this, I'm incredibly grateful for that. Very few other shows get this. There's no question. There are shows and movies that have 50th anniversary celebrations, but we're one of those shows. And this is a relative rarity when you compare it to the number of shows and movies that are produced.
Absolutely.
Most disappear into the vapors. Little House has survived. that's because of Michael Landon and this beautiful source material that we worked from. It's a gift to be a part of it.
Wow. Please come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Thanks, Arrow. I appreciate it.